Hotep. This is Brother Sarah. I hope you can hear me. Oops. Hotep. Welcome to Journey in the Self. I'm your host, Brother Sarah. Tonight we will be going into part 5 of our discussion about Donald Trump, outsider or establishment. This is an important show in that there are a number of things that have occurred recently with the administration, decisions that have been made, appointments and selections of personnel, and the implementation of policies by the Trump administration. We will go into the effect that they could have on the Black community. And we will also discuss the origin of some of these policies and also show the connections. And the connections are very important in that it dispels the myth that there are two sides operating. It dispels the myth that there's a war going on between conservatives and liberals. It destroys the myth of the Democrat and Republican conflict. Indeed, we've shown in prior shows how there are connections between both sides, and we will further demonstrate and document some of those connections. But I want to give a really brief overview over the things that we had discussed before, just to kind of lay the groundwork. So in our earlier shows, we talked about how Donald Trump first acquired his properties, his hotel properties, his casinos, and we showed the connection between Trump and the Rothschild family and a number of individuals that helped him come into prominence as a real estate investor. We showed how some of those connections, principally being Wilbur Ross, who worked for Rothschilds and Sons Bank, who was instrumental in saving him from bankruptcy when he was on the verge of bankruptcy after the real estate collapse. We documented in prior shows the importance of understanding the significance of the connection to the Rothschild family, given that the Rothschild family are at the core of what some people refer to as the establishment. I believe that establishment term comes from one Carol Quigley, who wrote the books Tragedy and Hope and the Anglo-American Establishment, to give a description of those who are operating in the background behind the scenes and controlling world affairs. In those two books, he documented how, with the third will, actually, I think it was the seventh will, that Cecil Rhodes wrote, was one that gave the set aside financing to start the Roundtable Group, a secret society. And at the heart of that secret society would be uh, Lord Rothschild, Lord Milner, and Lord Balfour. And we've talked about the significance of Lord Balfour being a principal member of the Roundtable Group, in that it was the Balfour Agreement that resulted in the creation of the State of Israel. We discussed how from the Roundtable Group came organizations such as the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the United Nations. We noted connections between the media, different media outlets, the control that they have over media and finance, in particular, banking. Uh, some of those connections include Goldman Sachs, which is particularly prominent, but also Chase, Manhattan Bank, or JP Morgan Chase now, Citibank, Citigroup, who operate through the American agents of the Rothschilds, the Rockefeller family. So we show these connections to show some of the significance of the who the people are. So when people make vague references to the using the term like the establishment or the deep state, as Trump likes to call it, we're identifying who it is, as Brother Steve Coakley taught me, and others. It's about naming the names, identifying, who exactly is behind this. Okay, and so in that regard, we want to, go through some of the recent appointments and also recent significant individuals who've been working with Trump, helping to finance Trump, and showing who they're connected to, so that we can clearly see that Trump is not an outsider by any stretch of the imagination. He is deeply ensconced in the establishment. He's part of the deep state. He's an agent of the so-called deep state. He's not draining the swamp. He's filling the swamp. Okay, so we're going to present some of these, some information, some background into some of these prominent individuals who are involved with Trump currently. So I'm going to share the screen. Okay. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Just bear with me. That's what we want. hopefully you can see what we're sharing here. I'm not sure what you're seeing. Oh, that's sorry. This is what I want to do. Bear with me. Still learning this platform. Excuse me just a minute. I might just have to read this for you until I can figure out how to do this. Okay, we'll just do this. We'll just share the whole screen. And I'll just go over to the article. Okay, so here we are. Sam Altman, his significance is that he is currently working with Trump, and he's known for OpenAI, an artificial intelligence corporation. He's working along with Larry Ellison on development of an AI platform, along with you see we talked Peter Thiel. He's working with Larry Ellison on an AI platform for along with the Trump administration. You see significant people that we've spoken about before. You see Peter Thiel. You see Elon Musk. Okay, and we're going to go back over Peter Thiel so we can again underscore his significance in relation to Trump and his administration. Okay. So here we go into Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is the co-founder of PayPal, Palantir Technologies. He was an investor in Facebook. We'll see some more significance of him and his background. He started this hedge firm called Palantir, where he worked with current Vice President J.D. Vance. You see, he studied at Stanford University. He talks about some of his early career here. One of his companies was a cryptography company, which is often used in the intelligence community. He worked for securities lawyer Sullivan and Cromwell, which does also have connections to the intelligence community. Here we see Palantir, again, underscoring the fact that Palantir and Peter Thiel have a close connection to the intelligence community. We see Palantir's first backer was a Central Intelligence Agency's venture capital arm, Q Intel. Is um, not without significance that he's an investor in Facebook. Again, noting the connection between intelligence community and Peter Thiel, that would stand to reason that there's a connection between Facebook and intelligence community, as I've made the point before. You might want to take that into consideration the next time you're considering posting your activities. He describes himself as a conservative libertarian. He works with the think tank, the Hoover Institution, a very conservative think tank that influences government policy. The Hoover Institution is also connected to the Roundtable Group, the Rose Rothschild Secret Society. And then here you see that Peter Thiel is a member of the steering committee of the Bilderberger Group. The Bilderberger Group is also a very prominent policy group that has its origins and is closely connected to the Roundtable Group, which was started by Cecil Rose and Lord Rothschild. Okay, now I mentioned these things to underscore who the establishment is. So when we're talking about the establishment, when we're talking about the so-called deep state, we're identifying who exactly it is. Okay. And so when you're talking about draining the swamp, when you're talking about transitioning government away from the control of the establishment or so-called deep state, you would not be working with and aligning yourself with any of these organizations or people if that's your objective. Okay, but we see here that he is a member of the steering committee of the Bilderberger Group. You can't be part of the Bilderberger Group and claim to be anti-establishment. Those two just don't add up. Okay. Now we see that Peter Thiel made significant contributions to two senatorial candidates, both of whom worked for Peter Thiel, one of which was J.D. Vance. And so we'll go into some information about J.D. Vance. Again, we also note that, like Sam Altman, Peter Thiel is involved in artificial intelligence research. And just kind of a side note, Peter Thiel happens to be gay. So he would be someone who would be a promoter of LGBTQ, something that Trump claims to not be in alliance with. So let's go to information on J.D. Vance, but let's first look at the relationship, a little further into the relationship between J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel, if we still have that. Here it is. Good. Okay. Okay. What's to know about the relationship between Trump's vice president pick and Peter Thiel, the billionaire? J.D. Vance, former president, well, current president Donald Trump's vice president, has had a long collaborative relationship with GOP donor and Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel, one that has aided Vance from his time in venture capital to his role as an Ohio senator. And we noted again that J.D. Vance worked with Peter Thiel in starting the venture capital firm Palantir. It says here that Vance and Thiel's relationship dates back to 2011 when Senator met Thiel following a talk that the venture capitalist gave at Yale Law School. Both of these individuals, I know that J.D. Vance, we documented, graduated from Yale Law School, and we talked about the fact that Skull and Bones is headquartered at Yale Law School, a secret society that is in alliance with the Roundtable Group, and also a secret society called Sigma Pi Phi, otherwise known as the Boule. It says here, Thiel became a pretty good mentor to Vance, according to the Washington Post, with Vance making the switch to venture capital and joining the Thiel co-founded Mithril Capital in 2015 as a partner, according to Politico. Vance launched his own venture capital firm in 2019 under the name of Narya Capital, which sought to invest in startups in overlooked cities and reportedly received backing from Thiel and other billionaire investors like venture capitalist Mark Andreessen and former Google CEO Eric Schmidt. Thiel also reportedly brought Vance, who established himself as a critic of Trump, to Mar-a-Lago in 2021 to smooth over his relationship with the former president. And it's just following the meeting, Vance became more sympathetic to Trump. Let's see how much of this might be. Here we go. This will be pretty good. Thiel said during an interview at the Aspen Ideals Festival last month, "You hold a gun to my head, I'll vote for Trump." The comment seemingly showed reluctant support for Trump, as Thiel said if he was asked to make a pro-Trump argument, he would not, although he could probably come up with anti-Biden arguments. He said he would not donate money to Trump, but then later donated more than $1 million to Trump back in 2016, and he ended up donating much more than that during the current campaign. Says he was one of the most significant donors of Trump back during 2016. And it says later that Vance has more closely aligned his politics with Trump, although there was a point when he was also anti-Trump. And so he's begun opposing nationally guaranteed abortion rights, pushing against strict gun control laws and prioritizing the fight against inflation. However, it says that Trump and Vance do not see eye to eye on everything, including their levels of support for Project 2025, which Trump has disavowed purportedly, but we'll show you how much he has disavowed it as we go on later. This is Thiel, who is also co-founder of CIA-backed analytics firm Palantir, who also employed J.D. Vance. Okay, so with that, let's go look at J.D. Vance. Some of this information we've gone over earlier. We just mentioned that he was educated at Yale Law School. He got his degree in 2013. As we read, he became a venture capitalist after his meeting with Peter Thiel. He attended Yale Law School. Later, he ended up running for senator of Ohio. And I want to skip ahead here. In this paragraph, it says that Trump's two eldest sons, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, advocated for their father to choose Vance. Several media and industry figures are said to have lobbied for Vance to become on the presidential ticket, including Elon Musk, David O. Sachs, Tucker Carlson, and Peter Thiel, who first introduced Trump to Vance in 2021. The Heritage Foundation, which drafted Project 2025, privately advocated for Vance to be Trump's vice presidential pick. Okay, so here we will transition into looking at Project 2025. And then from there, we will go ahead and discuss some of the recent initiatives and correlate them to what is written here in Project 2025, and then discuss the potential impact and even impact that is already having now on the Black community. And as you see, much of our sources are, regret that I hadn't read the sources into the record, but if you're watching, you can see these. But we've gone through information from Wikipedia, Forbes, and back to Wikipedia. Okay, so we're now currently on Wikipedia. Project 2025 is a political initiative published in April 2023 by the American conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. The project aims to promote conservative and right-wing policies, to reshape the federal government of the United States, and to consolidate executive power, originally under the premise that Donald Trump will win the 2024 presidential election, which he has. To consolidate executive power under the executive branch. And so basically to turn over the power of government to the president, who ostensibly and currently is Donald Trump, thus making him emperor or king. Project 2025 is the 9th iteration of the Mandate for Leadership series. The project asserts a controversial interpretation of the unitary executive theory, according to which the entire executive branch is under the complete control of the U.S. president. Now, this seems to be completely in alignment with Trump's rhetoric, even during his first administration. It proposes reclassifying tens of thousands of federal civil workers as political appointees in order to replace them with people loyal to the president. Proponents of the project argue would dismantle what they view as a vast, unaccountable, and mostly liberal government bureaucracy. But we know that conservative liberal dichotomy is just a smokescreen. Legal experts have said it would undermine the rule of law, separation of powers, separation of church and state, and civil liberties. Project 2025 envisions sweeping changes to economic and social policies in the federal government and its agencies. The plan proposes taking partisan control of the Department of Justice, which he has done, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not sure on that one yet, the Department of Commerce, which he had by appointing Wilbur Ross in the previous administration, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, dismantling the Department of Homeland Security, and abolishing the Department of Education, whose programs would be transferred or terminated. Now, one of the things that it's been clear that Trump does do, and I believe that this is to give the appearance that he is making some real change that that benefits the people, so that people can have something to hold on to as a benefit for voting for him. And so many of us, including myself, would be in favor of this part where it says it calls for making the National Institutes of Health less independent, stopping it from funding research with embryonic stem cells, and reducing environmental and climate change regulations in favor of fossil fuels. That part I don't particularly support, but I am in favor of dismantling or making the National Institute of Health less independent. For if you recognize the National Institute of Health, you will know that that is the organization or the agency that was run by one Anthony Fauci, and is a agency that is, for all intents and purposes, controlled by the pharmaceutical industry, which is why when you watch television, you are bombarded with a plethora of pharmaceutical advertisements. Okay, so the blueprint seeks to institute tax cuts, which typically favor the wealthy. But its writers disagree on protectionism. The project seeks to cut Medicare and Medicaid and urges government to explicitly reject abortion as health care. It seeks to eliminate coverage of emergency contraception and use the Comstock Act to prosecute those who send and receive contraceptives and abortion pills. It proposes criminalizing pornography and imprisoning those who produce it, removing legal protections against discrimination on sexual orientation and gender identity, and terminating diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, that are known as DEI programs, while having the DOJ, Department of Justice, prosecute anti white racism instead. Uh, and we know anti-white racism is a oxymoron and does not exist. The project recommends arrest, detention, and mass deportation of illegal immigrants living in the United States. It proposes deploying the military for domestic law enforcement. It promotes capital punishment and the speedy finality of those sentences. It hopes to undo almost anything implemented by the Biden administration. Okay, so we'll go back to here. Terminating diversity, equity, inclusion programs. So what has happened today? Today, Trump has reached out to federal workers, offering federal workers buyouts with about 8 months' pay in an effort to shrink government, quote unquote. And I say shrink government, quote unquote, because who works for the government? So, what is he saying? What are they saying when they say they want to shrink government? Okay, it's a couple of things. One, we realize that a significant amount of Black people work for the government in various capacities. So when they're shrinking government, they're essentially putting Black people, a lot of Black people, a significant amount of Black people out of work. Two, when they claim to be shrinking government under the auspices of saving money and increasing efficiency, that is subterfuge. It's a trick because they're not saving any money at all. In fact, when they so-called shrink government, it does not make the expenditures any less. It does not save the government money. It does not save taxpayers any money at all. In fact, taxpayers end up paying more because what happens when they so-called shrink government, it means that they put an end to the services that are provided by the government and they end up contracting them out to private corporations, typically who are donors to the campaigns of the politicians who are in charge, who benefit from these contracts. Often the politicians have arrangements with these companies, have served as either lobbyists for them or worked for them or become lobbyists for them or work directly for them after they end their careers. And again, benefit from their donations to their campaigns. And so typically these government contracts that replace the services that were provided by the government by those agencies end up being taken over by government contractors who typically charge a significant amount more than the service was provided by the government agencies. So it does not save taxpayer money. It's really just a means to further transfer wealth. Okay. Today is Tuesday. The Trump administration announced Tuesday that it is offering buyouts to all federal employees who opt to leave their jobs by next week, an unprecedented move to shrink the government at breakneck speed. A memo from the Office of Personnel Management, the government's human resources agency, said it would begin subjecting all federal employees to enhanced standards of suitability and conduct, and ominously warned of future downsizing. The email sent to millions of employees said those who leave their posts voluntarily will receive about 8 months of salary, but they have to choose to do so by February 6th. Katie Miller, who serves on an advisory board to the Department of Government Efficiency, a special Trump administration department headed by Tesla CEO Elon Musk, and tasked with the size of shrinking the size of government, posted on X. This email is being sent to more than 2 million federal employees. Okay, let's go back and look at Project 2025. The project recommends, excuse me, I'm sorry. It proposes terminating diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI programs while having the DEJ prosecute anti-white racism instead. I think we go back up earlier. That's what I was looking for. Project 2025 envisions sweeping changes to economic and social policies in the federal government and its agencies. Okay. Says purging. This is okay. Even a fraction of the workforce accepting bias could send shockwaves through the economy and trigger widespread disruptions throughout society as a whole, triggering wide-ranging as yet unknowable implications for the delivery, timeliness, and effectiveness of federal services across the nation. It's going to also have an adverse effect on the economy, which is already teetering on the edge, despite what you might hear the economists say. Says the substantial majority of federal employees have been working remotely since COVID will be required to return to their physical office 5 days a week. That echoes Trump, who said to federal employees over the weekend, you got to go to your office and work. Otherwise, you're not going to have a job. I think that's all that we want to read from here. Also today, Trump freezes federal grants, what's included and what it could mean for you. The funding freeze could affect trillions of dollars, at least temporarily, and cause widespread disruption in healthcare research, education programs, and other initiatives. The White House is pausing federal grants and loans starting on Tuesday as President Donald Trump's administration begins a review of its spending. What does the pause do? The funding freeze could affect trillions of dollars, at least temporarily, and cause widespread disruption in healthcare, research, education programs, and other initiatives. Even grants that have been awarded but not spent are supposed to be halted. The use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of those we serve. This is a memo from Matthew Vaith, the acting director of the Office of Management and Budget. Um, there has been an injunction, a lawsuit filed to freeze that. I did want to put this on the record, but I also want to um, let's see. Trump order ending federal DEI programs, diversity, equity, and initiative, diversity, equity, and what does that stand for again? Project 2025. Inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Trump order ending federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs leaves agencies and stakeholders on uncertain ground. That includes any. It'll be interesting to see what happens next month, couple of days, because one of the things that I've noted is that any federal agencies of government that have even done programs honoring Black History Month, those programs have been eliminated. Um, so I would not be surprised if the government does not any longer recognize Black History Month. Not that we really particularly care, because it's not. Um, we will celebrate it regardless of whether the government recognizes it. We don't need the government's permission. Nonetheless, they will not be celebrated by any federal agencies. So it says from federal agencies to stakeholders who get federal dollars for special training, many are trying to process how Donald Trump's sweeping executive order putting a stop to diversity, equity, inclusion programs across the United States government will append their work. The laws and programs have been under attack for years by Republicans who contend that the measures threaten merit-based hiring, promotion, and educational opportunities of white people, specifically white men, as if white men are being discriminated against. Criticism comes from other sectors as well. Some Asian Americans argue it unfairly limits opportunity for high achieving students and workers, and some of the Black community believe it undermines years of progress. I'd like to know who those might be. However, DEI supporters say the programs are necessary to ensure that institutions meet the needs of increasingly diverse populations, and the impact of the loss of these goes beyond people of color. Just for the record, um, diversity so-called programs, or even if you might want to call it affirmative action or equal opportunity programs, were initiated because of the significant advantage that white people, particularly white men, have always been afforded. Uh, you could very much say that there has always been affirmative action for white people, and that is how they were able to accumulate wealth in this country since um, it was stolen from the native population who lived there, which includes us. And so affirmative action and equal opportunity programs were meant to try to even the slate, to balance the slate, and to bring equity because of the that white people have had, to bring some fairness. Okay, so that's enough of my editorializing on that. On Wednesday, Trump put the federal government's weight behind the push to end such programs by signing an executive order that will effectively dismantle them from all aspects of federal government. I do need to say for the record as well that we do have President Obama, Barack Obama, to thank for the use of the executive orders, because the use of an executive order became prominent under the Obama administration. He brought back the use of the executive order. And at the time when he began doing so, significant warnings were being made about the excessive use of executive orders, um, and that it could be, the usage could be abused in the future. And there were significant warnings put forth about the uses of executive orders, because they could end up leading to abuses of power, which is what we see currently happening. We saw it even during the Biden administration. Okay. And now again, so there's another setback that we owe to Barack Obama, who actually, under his administration, began this whole phase of uh, rolling back affirmative action and equal opportunity programs. So the people who oppose us, the ones who attack DEI, they have tried to bastardize that acronym. Virginia K. Solomon, President and CEO of Common Cause, said Wednesday during a call to action panel after Trump's anti-DEI executive order. Instead, they want to diminish and exterminate and incapacitate progress towards a multiracial democracy to maintain white supremacy and a concentration of wealth. I do agree with that statement. During his campaign for president, Donald Trump vowed to end wokeness and the leftist indoctrination in education. He pledged to dismantle diversity programs that he says amount to discrimination and impose fines on colleges up to the entire amount of their endowment. In 2023, conservatives notched a long sought win when the U.S. Supreme Court struck down affirmative action programs in higher education, finding that race conscious programs violate the Constitution. Again, I will lay blame on Barack Obama again, because the current composition of the Supreme Court is as it is because Barack Obama did not hold his ground in his appointments to the Supreme Court, and allowed his candidates to be disqualified, or withdrew candidates that did not meet with the approval of the Republican Party and the conservatives. And so during his administration, he missed the opportunity to appoint those who would be inclined to uphold equal opportunity and affirmative action programs. The executive action calls for the termination of DEI programs, mandates, policies, preferences, and activities in the federal government, along with the review and revision of existing federal employment practices, union contracts, and training policies or programs. Agency, department, and commission heads have 60 days to terminate to the maximum extent of the law, allowed by the law, all DEI, DEIA, and environmental justice officers and positions, action plans, equity-related grants, or contracts, as well as in all DEI or DEIA performance requirements. It also targets federal contractors who have provided DEI training or materials and grantees who receive federal funding to provide or advance DEI programs, services, or activities since President Joe Biden took office. Here, I want to share an article that Brother Jamal sent me to give an example of the effect that the elimination of DEI programs would have. I mentioned the significance of eliminating the jobs and how that would end up adversely affecting the Black community. Elimination of DEI programs will also affect the hiring, particularly in government, but also across the board in the private industry. It will adversely affect the admission into colleges, institutes of higher learning, employment across the board, in the elimination of a number of opportunities. We saw the ending of grants, loans, which would include student loans, which is how many Black people have been able to finance their college education. So here we read about a sister named Naika Arnold, a sixth generation from Austin, Texas. She comes from a family who lived in slavery not far from Austin, Texas, in the cotton farming town of Weberville. And it was her great grandfather, Reverend John Henry Wynn, who founded St. John Freedom Colony in Austin, Texas in the early 1870s. So community leadership runs in her family. In 2021, she was still without a college degree. She co-founded the nonprofit Healing Project. That same year, there was a storm. She drove down to help homeless Austinites, people who lost their homes during the storm, and other people who were already homeless, and helped bring them to homeless shelters. It says that though her family has been leaders in Austin, Texas longer than the University of Texas has existed, none of her family had ever attended the university. The University of Texas had resisted integration even after the Supreme Court ruling abandoned it, and didn't accept its first Black student until 1956. She was 12 or 13 before she even ever set foot on the campus. She became the first in the family to attend college last year and began pursuing her bachelor's degree from Austin Community College. And this January, she started coursework in the University of Texas's Austin University of Texas in Austin's Wield Texas, a 2-year executive leadership and entrepreneurship program that not only teaches women of color practical skills, but also women of color. I'll have to let brother Dr. Hassan uh, take note of this. Um, but women of color teaches women of color practical skills, but also emphasizes networking in the community. The goal was to help women of color get hired in high power roles and attract investors. Under the umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusivity, Wield and its sister program, the Product Prodigy Institute, have ended every semester with a Shark Tank style demo day, which sees diverse students pitching their ideas to real life investors in the community. Well, now, just one semester in, Arnold is losing her shot at the University of Texas because the Wield program is one of the DI initiatives, and university announced that it would dissolve in the wake of Trump's pronouncement. And so it is these type of programs across the country at universities, um, grants that our people have received to promote community programs and social programs for the benefit of uh, our people. Uh, Again, I mentioned student loans, grants that also have assisted people in being able to start businesses. So the elimination of these programs will have a wide ranging adverse effect uh, on the community, uh, and will, in the long term, it may be beneficial depending upon what we do. Um, but the effect in the short term is going to be extremely adverse to our people in terms of jobs and access to education. Also, reduce a number of different um, initiatives to be able to help funding businesses. And it's going to force the Black community to come together in unity to support one another. So, what we, the community, does with this is going to be significant. But it is going to require the coming together of our people. Okay. Let's see. What I wanted to do is go a little bit more into some of the people that have been appointed. Um, and again, with people who have been working for um, and with Trump. Um, so today, Scott Bessent was confirmed in the Trump administration as the Secretary of the Treasury. And so we'll see some of the information here on Scott Bessent. And as we read some of this information into the record, and this is from Wikipedia, we'll find some of the familiar names and organizations that we've spoken about previously. Here we go right into his background and we'll see a familiar name. Scott Kenneth Homer Bessent is an American investor and hedge fund manager who has served United States Secretary of the Treasury since January 28th, 2025. That's today. He was a partner at Soros Fund Management. I'll read that again. He was a partner at Soros Fund Management and the founder of Key Square Group, a global macro investment firm. Now, George Soros, as we've discussed, and many of you know, George Soros is considered to be the primary financier of the liberal agenda, the financier of many liberal organizations and projects, uh, including uh, the women who took over Black Lives Matter and converted it into an advocacy group for the LGBTQ community, the Black LGBTQ community in particular, and a number of so-called woke agenda projects. But we see that our current Trump administration appointee worked for Soros Fund Management. So I would say that Soros would be considered to be a member of the establishment, the so-called deep state, part of the swamp that Trump uh, vowed to drain. But as we said, and I made the point, uh, Trump is not anti-establishment. Trump is part of the establishment. Trump is adding people from the establishment directly into government and is filling the swamp. And we see the false dichotomy of the conservative versus liberals is a fallacy. There is no there is no opposition. It's control. Okay. He is the second openly gay man to serve in the cabinet of the United States after Pete Buttigieg. Um, and we also note that Peter Thiel was also gay. Just a side note. And the part of the significance of that is um, he's the highest ranking openly LGBTQ person in American history. The anti woke agenda is ostensibly anti LGBTQ. And I think, as we saw when we were looking at Project 2025, that it was the projects that benefit LGBTQ type organizations is one of the objectives that Project 2025 wants to eradicate. We can, I'm trying to look for that really quickly where it discusses. Here. Project 2025 opposes what it calls radical gender ideology and advocates that the government maintain a biblically based social science reform definition of marriage and family. To achieve this, it proposes removing protections against discrimination on the basis of sexual or gender identity and eliminating provisions pertaining to diverse, equity, and inclusion, which calls state sanctioned racism from federal legislation. It's supposed to adversely affect education. Federal employees who have participated in DEI programs or any initiatives involving critical race theory might be fired. But yeah, so I just wanted to make that particular point um, because I think it is of note that Trump will appoint someone who, on the surface, would be one of the targets of the policies that he's promoting. Okay, so back to Besant. Uh, we'll see some other significant connections that he has as we go through his information. It says that he earned his bachelor's degree in political science from Yale University. Um, and as we know, the Yale University is home to the secret society Skull and Bones, of which he's likely to be a member. He joined the Soros Funds Management in 1991. Was a partner there throughout the 1990s, eventually becoming head of the London office. In 1992, Besant was a leading member of the team whose bet on Black Wednesday collapse. The British pound garnered over $1 billion for the firm. His bet against the Japanese yen in 2013 brought about additional profit. He founded his own hedge fund, which he closed later, and then ended up going back to the Soros Fund Management Group, where he became chief investment officer. And he also was an adjunct professor of economic history at Yale. He received funds for his Key Square Group in 2015 from George Soros. So apparently he had a very good relationship with George Soros again. But he currently works for in the Trump organization or administration rather. But you see, some of these people will switch allegiances as is expedient. He hosted a fundraiser for Al Gore. He donated to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And in 2016, he also donated to Donald Trump's campaign. And in 2023 and 2024, he donated $1 million to Trump's campaign. And you see, you get your money's worth by him being appointed to the Secretary of the Treasury. And let's see if we find good. This is what I remember. Besant sits on the University Council at Yale University. Besant and his sister donated the Besant Library to Yale University, so we see he's pretty actively involved there again. The Yale University is home of Skull and Bones. Besant chaired the investment committee and is a former member of the executive committee on the board of trustees of Rockefeller University. Rockefeller, we talked about being the American agent of the Rothschilds, who basically started the Anglo-American establishment, otherwise known as the establishment, euphemistically referred to as the deep state by one Donald Trump. And we cap it off by, on the last sentence, it says, Besant is also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which we noted earlier in the show is directly connected to the Roundtable Group or the Anglo-American establishment or the establishment, also known, aka the deep state. Okay, so I wanted to go through this information and underscore, and we'll go here too, just for austerity. But I want to underscore the connections of the people who have helped to promote Donald Trump, finance Donald Trump, are currently part of his administration, clearly identifying them in connection with the so-called establishment, which Donald Trump purports to be anti of. That his commitment to drain the swamp, to eradicate the deep state, are just merely words to compel people to support him, because those are expedient things to say, given the fact that people are aware that such a thing exists. Okay. We may at some point reach out to Brother Siddiqui Bakari to get his insights on the significance of the use of artificial intelligence. And I made mention about this earlier as we were talking about these individuals. We were talking about Peter Thiel. We were talking about, who was this other guy? What was his name? It'll come to me. But we were talking about Peter Thiel and his connection to AI, and so here we're talking about, or we're looking at, some other people. Larry Ellison has also developed a open AI, and the people that he is working with right now intend to develop something that they call Stargate, which is going to be a $500 billion infrastructure based on or tied to artificial intelligence, based on a partnership between OpenAI, Oracle, which is Larry Ellison's company, and SoftBank. So the new entity Stargate will start building out data centers and the electricity generation needed for the further development of fast evolving AI in Texas, according to the White House. The initial investment is expected to be $1 billion and could reach 5 times that sum. It's big money and high quality people, said Trump, and that is a resounding declaration of confidence in America's potential under his new administration. Sam Altman was the person I was looking for. So it was joining Trump fresh off his inauguration at the White House were Masayoshi, son of SoftBank, Sam Altman of OpenAI, and Larry Ellison of Oracle, who have come together to make this project possible, the project Stargate, which Altman says will be the most important project of this era. If you go and look at Altman, you'll see that Altman formerly was a significant critic of Donald Trump. And I thought I had an article about Sam Altman up here, but I can't seem to find it. I must have closed that. Maybe we can find it real quick. Okay, yeah, we can look real quick at Sam Altman, Chief Executive Officer of OpenAI. He went to Stanford University. In December 2015, Altman co-founded OpenAI, an artificial intelligence research organization, alongside notable figures such as Elon Musk, Jessica Livingston, and Peter Thiel, who we spoke about. So again, just noting the connections between these individuals. Here again, they talk about OpenAI, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Jessica Livingston. But I wanted to bring that to I wanted to highlight that again to show the connections between again these individuals and the so-called establishment, of which Trump purports to be anti. Altman was invited to attend the Bilderberg meeting in 2016, 2022, and 2023. And it notes that Altman just happens to be also openly gay. Okay. Back to this. Ellison noted that the data centers are already under construction, with 10 being built so far. The chairman of Oracle, that's Larry Ellison, suggested that the project was also tied to digital health records and would make it easier to treat diseases such as cancer by possibly developing a customized vaccine. The push to build data centers predates Trump's presidency. Last October, the financial company Blackstone um, we discussed Blackstone a bit in the past and noted the people behind that. Also, uh, establishment people. And of course, we know Elon Musk is now heading the Department of Government Efficiency, which is behind supposedly reducing government spending, which, as I pointed out, doesn't mean that they're reducing government spending at all. It means that they're redirecting government spending from government agencies to contractors, private contractors. So basically, sending our tax dollars to um, private companies and private individuals who will benefit from the tax dollars as opposed to people, and will charge more for the services that the government used to provide for free. Okay, so it seems that as things develop, there's going to be more that needs to be said um, about this. Uh, you may ask, Brother Sarah, I thought that Journey into Self was a spiritual show. It is. But as I've pointed out before, spirituality is not an escape from life, an escape from reality. We learn spirituality to gain insight into ourselves, to put ourselves on the path of self discovery, self awareness, and to attain union with self, self being our true self, which is divinity, to merge into divinity. But we're here on earth, living uh, in this realm. Uh, and we all have a purpose. Our higher purpose, of course, is to unite with spirit. But we also have a part to play in the grand drama of humanity. And it is our job, responsibility as spiritual people to fight against unrighteousness. In the Kemetic teachings, the symbolism of Asar battling Set was a battle for righteousness, in addition to its symbolism of the battle between our higher and lower selves, because it reflects the fact that as is above, so is below. And so we are microcosms of the great macrocosm and vice versa. So everything that happens within us happens in the external environment. And so just as it is that we have to face and overcome the lower nature in ourselves, we have to also face and overcome the lower nature in humanity. And we have to, just as we have to battle internally, we have to battle with the external enemy so that we can restore righteousness on this planet, so that we can restore Ma'at on the planet. That symbolism is also exhibited in the Bhagavad Gita or the Mahabharata War, where Krishna fought against the Kauravas, who were adharmic or against Dharma. Dharma is the Indian equivalent of Ma'at. And so Krishna himself fought in that war to ensure that righteousness be established on the earth. And so it is our responsibility. So it's not uh, separate from our responsibilities as spiritual people for our own self development, but we're supposed to also contribute to establishing uh, peace, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, order, and balance to society on this planet. So that's why we're dealing with these things in addition to spirituality. So I hope you found this to be informative and this will help motivate you to be informed, but also to take action, to engage in your spiritual practices because it's necessary for us to do so, so that we can deal with these circumstances um, while maintaining our peace. So, with that, I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Journey into Self, and we'll continue in on our discussion, but we may take a little break so that we can go into some spirituality because I think we need to do both. We need to have balance, but we need to have the spiritual consciousness in order to be able to withstand the things that we face um, in the grand drama. So with that, Hotep, we'll see you next time here on Journey into Self. Hotep.